Welcome to Clear to Respond. I'm Samantha Hoffman, Public Fire and Life Safety Officer, Barrie Fire and Emergency Service. Today, we have a guest here on our show from Office of the Fire Marshal and Emergency Management, Rick Durstroff. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
We're here talking about flame jetting. What is your role with the Office of the Fire Marshal?
Well, I work in fire investigation services, so I deal with fire investigations throughout the province. Specifically, I deal with mostly fire safety issues.
And we have a big fire safety issue when it comes to these fire pots and flame jetting. And your office made a really spectacular video. What do you think if we watch the video and then come back and talk about it, just so our viewers have an idea of what exactly we're going to be talking about over the next half hour?
Sure.
And if we can just throw to the video, please.
Flame jetting mostly occurs in a backyard, deck, patio, or similar outdoor environment during warmer weather. The persons involved usually have company or relatives over for a social function. On the table or on the deck is a liquid-burning candle or fire pot, which burns liquid fuel such as ethanol. The pots are usually ignited by use of a match or barbecue lighter after the fuel is added. As the evening wears on, the liquid fuel is consumed. The people around, believing that the candle has gone fully out, reach for the fuel container and proceed to refill the ornament. In many cases, the flame, although not readily visible, is still active, and when the new fuel is introduced, it ignites the vapors. The flame quickly follows the vapors upstream to the container, which ignites the fuel and air mixture within the container. The sudden overpressure from this rapid expansion displaces burning liquid with force from the container. The flaming liquid is then propelled onto nearby persons and the contents of the yard. To date, the Office of the Fire Marshal and Emergency Management is aware of 2 fatalities. There have also been several reports of people who have been seriously injured from flame jetting incidents. 3 safety tips. 1. Make sure the appliance is out and cold. 2. Where possible, purchase fuel in a container which has a flame arrestor. 3. Make sure no one is nearby when the refueling attempt occurs.
Wow. That is very frightening.
It is, and it happens all too frequently. So we need to make sure the message gets out that if people are going to be using these types of devices, that they need to use them safely.
So maybe you can explain, I know the video talked about flame jetting, but what exactly is it?
It's a phenomenon that happens when you're pouring a flammable liquid onto a hot surface or an open flame, and the vapors from the flammable product catches on fire, and then it will jet out of the actual container, and it can jet up to 15 feet, so quite a distance.
And it really doesn't matter who you are. Anybody is at risk if you have one of these. And we have a fire pot here on the table. They're pretty, and especially now with COVID, I guess, more people are staying home and creating those staycations. So we're seeing more and more people have them in their backyard. Yes,
we are seeing it, and I mean, they're convenient because you don't have to cut wood or anything of that nature, and have a big fire pit. And they're fairly clean for the most part, but there are safety things that you have to take into account. And the majority of the safety, almost all of the injuries result as it's being refueled. So that's what we want to make sure we get across to people, that when you're refueling these particular fireplaces, that you make sure that the flame is completely out and that it's been sitting for quite some time so that it's completely cooled off. So because this will still ignite even if it's hot. So even if the flame is out, it still can ignite if it's hot.
So one of the words that's sticking with me that you said is clean. It burns clean.
Yes.
So that's why people. And another way of thinking that it burns clean is it burns invisible.
That's correct, and that's another thing that I want to make sure people understand, that these flames, are very difficult to see. Especially in certain lighting conditions.
So let's look at, sorry to interrupt you, but maybe we can look at this a little bit more. So if somebody doesn't know how it works, like you could look at this, and I don't know if you can see that with the camera, but there's no wick, there isn't anything to light. So you're actually putting a fuel inside this to light it on fire. So it goes right in this
Yeah, it goes in the reservoir or container.
It's not a lot of fuel.
No, it's not a lot of fuel, and the flame is actually more difficult to see when you have less fuel, because the flame won't actually be that high, so it might be burning in here, and you might not see it thinking it's empty, and go to refuel it, and there's still an open flame going.
So tell me, what kind of fuel would people use in this?
Yeah, people use ethanol or methanol in those types of containers. They're both very similar products. I brought 2 of them here with me. We just did some testing with some field testing with both these products, and I had them both lit. Mind you, we were outside, and the only way I could actually tell if the flame was going is I held a piece of paper over top of it, so to see if it would ignite. And
so how would you know the difference between methanol and ethanol?
Well, the packaging is almost exactly the same, so you can't really tell the difference. I mean, they do have different colors. The methanol has a little bit of a blue tinge to it, but that's, again, just a product from this certain company here. The ethanol will give you a slightly brighter flame.
So as a consumer, if I was a consumer, is there a reason I would buy one over the other?
It's a personal choice.
Okay.
I mean, the ethanol is more of a natural-based product from fermentation of crops, and the methanol is a synthetic material.
So I recognize these from my fondue set. So people, going back to burning clean, people bring these in their houses.
Yes, absolutely, all the time.
And there are even fire bowls or fireplaces that are ethanol fueled. Are you seeing fires inside homes from this, or injuries?
Well, the majority of them do occur outside. People are having social gatherings, or there's a family gathering, and that's why we have not just a single injury, for example. We'll have a multitude of injuries because they're in close proximity to the fire.
So maybe we can actually light them on fire and see if we can get a visual to see if there are any flames. So we will just, we do need to go to a commercial break, so maybe we'll get ready to light them on fire. Now, can you lift these? So is it okay if I show these to the camera? So these ones are actually like a gel.
It's a gel.
But you can also get liquid form, can't you?
Yes, most of the incidents occur with the liquid format when they're actually refueling the fireplace. These ones are a little safer product because they're a gel, so they're not going to spill on you, and you know that they give off less vapors.
I've actually seen people, though, refill the gel containers with liquid ethanol.
Yeah, there's all sorts of things that occur.
That people are doing. Okay, well, we're going to take a break. When we come back from our break, we're going to light these so that you can actually see the difference between ethanol and methanol, and actually if you can see it. So make sure you come back after the break.
The following program is brought to you by Rogers Anyplace TV. Enjoy exclusive content for free. Visit RogersAnyPlaceTV.com.
Sometimes it's hard to say goodbye to an old friend. But when you're saying farewell to your vehicle, Kidney Car makes it fast and easy. Just call or visit our website. We'll take any vehicle in any condition and give you a tax receipt for a minimum of $300. No headaches and no towing charges. It's the one-stop solution for getting rid of your unwanted vehicle in just a few short minutes. When your vehicles reach the end of the road, call us toll-free or visit kidneycar.ca.
I can't afford a new roof.
Let me help.
How do you know Miranda?
Don't really.
Why are you fixing her roof?
She doesn't love him.
I think you and I collided for a reason.
The man that we're looking for is a mercenary assassin.
I'm going hunting.
Government wants him alive.
Loeffler let most of the animals out.
What kind of show do you want to see on Rogers TV? What interests you? Log on to rogerstv.com, fill out a show proposal, and tell us about your segment idea. We want to know what you want to see. Rogers TV, only on Rogers.
Welcome back to Clear to Respond. Today our guest is Rick Durstroff from the Office of the Fire Marshal. And we're talking about flame jetting. And so we're talking about the dangers that we have in our backyard where we think that we're being safe and we don't really realize the risks that we're taking. So we've got 2 containers in front now, one of ethanol and one of methanol. And the only way you're actually going to know what it is by reading your labels.
Yes, and you can tell a little bit by the flame. The ethanol will give you a slightly brighter flame, a little more whiter flame, whereas the methanol is more of a blue flame.
So we're doing this during the day, and you can't tell if they're lit or they're not lit. That was one of the things that we had tasked our viewers with to see. It's pretty hard to tell. Every once in a while you might catch a flame jumping, but I would think that most people would use this at night.
Yes, it is very difficult to see, and even at night. And as I explained with the outdoor product here, once the product starts to get down low, it's even harder to see. So definitely, I just did some testing with these outside, and it was so hard to see the flame. Actually, I had to use a piece of paper to test it to see if it was actually going.
So what's happening then? So people are using it, the flames are burning down, and then they want to refill them.
Yes.
So maybe you can explain that process to us.
So what happens is they assume or think that the flame is out or it's out of fuel, and they want to refuel it. So they grab their container of fuel and they go to fill it, and it can also happen with just a hot surface as well. So the flame could be out and it could be out of fuel, but the surface could still be hot enough to ignite the vapors. So they'll go to refuel it, and it'll actually ignite and go back to the container, and then the fuel will shoot out, the vapors will shoot out, and it can injure people in close proximity.
And we actually had exactly what you just described happen in our city last summer. Mm-hmm. It was a social gathering. There were 6 people sitting around. The person went to fill the fire pot. Same thing, the flame jetting, and then in their panic, because they weren't expecting it to happen, they went like this to move around, and when our crews responded, we were responding to 5 or 6 people with serious injuries.
Yes, and that seems to be the norm. It's you get multiple injuries because if people are in close proximity, they're at a social gathering or backyard gathering outdoors, and ultimately lots of people get injured because the flame front goes so far.
And I would think that it would be upper body injuries because you're sitting, so you're at the height of the flame. So you're getting them right in their face or upper torso.
Yes, and absolutely, totally unprotected. So it's fire on skin.
And have we seen a lot of these types of fires in the province?
Yeah, we've seen an increased amount of these fires and injuries that occur as a result of it. So one of the big things we've recommended is that to make sure that if you're going to refuel it, make sure that you leave it sit for a significant period of time so that it is definitely cold and there's no risk of the hot surface temperature igniting the liquid. And also, if it runs out, and just don't bother refueling it. Just cap it, make sure the cap's on nice and tight, and just leave it. You can refuel it the next day.
What I find interesting, because after our incident happened, our crews that responded were really not shaken, but taken aback by the call. And then when we sat around and talked about it in our fire prevention branch, it really hit home because it was something that you could easily see happening in your own home with people that you care about because the flames are so clean and you don't see them. And it was funny because I posted on my own social media and I had friends that have them that say, oh yeah, we're really safe with them. But when I mentioned the significant amount of time being 24 hours, really smart, educated people have said, oh, I don't wait that long. But I guess it all depends on what the pot is made out of, right?
Oh, for sure, yes.
For retaining the heat?
Yeah, everything's going to be a little different. It's going to stay warmer or hotter for a significant period of time, and others will cool really quickly. There's glass ones. There's all different types.
So what can they do? I know you talked about that. Is there anything that we can put on that makes it safer when we're filling them?
Yes, you can get a container. This one here is from a gasoline container, but a container that contains a flame arrestor. So it will reduce the likelihood of the vapors escaping as you're pouring. So in this container, you can see that there's a little nylon sleeve that goes all the way down into the container.
So that actually prevents the vapors from catching on fire?
Yes, it does. So what it does is prevents the vapors from actually escaping out the actual container.
Oh, okay.
So it doesn't prevent the vapors. If they're out and there's a hot surface or there's a flame, it can still ignite. So this significantly reduces the vapors escaping.
Do any of the bottles that they sell have spark arresters on them?
Though the refill containers that are just in like a 4-liter jug, they do not have them at this stage. We're trying to get that to be mandatory.
I know in the UK it is, correct?
I don't know if they've made it yet.
I think when I was doing some research just on our own incident, that was one of the things that I noticed, that some of the other countries that have been dealing with it for longer or aware of it longer, they've made it mandatory that you have these spark arresters. We need to take another break, but I would like to talk more about refueling and things that you can do safely and instructions and what people need to know. So when we come back from the break, we're going to talk more about these spark arresters and the steps that you can take to protect your family if you're going to have one of these fire pots.
After involving Nuha in this program, she feels very confident. Here you have a lot of opportunity.
I learned a lot of stuff, like being kind and I'm more open-minded.
Coldwater was the perfect town to host a steampunk festival because it already is a steampunk village. We have the historic grist mill, stone library, we have the authentic historic main street, and we actually are the only festival that takes an entire village and steampunks it for a day. Steampunk is Victorian industrial or retro futurism, all based in a spirit of fun and play. There seems to be an abundance of local artists and very, very creative people in an idyllic, authentic, historic village.
Through United Way, I did a self-esteem course, training for peer support, and now I volunteer. It's a lesson that comes from the nature of doing work with the United Way that gives me a new lease on my life.
Welcome back to Clear to Respond. Today our guest is Rick Durstroff from the Office of the Fire Marshal, and we're talking about flame jetting. And we've seen with the spark arrestor, we've seen the ethanol and the methanol and how dangerous it is. And people have these in their house as well, sometimes with fondues or even just Sunday brunch.
Banquets, yes.
Banquets.
All over.
So it's a serious problem. We've seen lots of injuries. We've had 6 injuries here in Barrie in one incident. I know there's been a couple of fatalities in the province. What if you had to tell our viewers the fire safety tips? What would the most important things that you want them to know? 3 things that you want them to know.
The big thing is to read the safety instructions. Follow the safety instructions, which basically say do not refuel it when it's still hot. Because it can still ignite.
So I guess it's like, just like you're planning for your party or your social event and you're getting your appetizers and everything ready, have your fire pot, if you're going to have one, have it filled and ready to use, and know that when it's out, you're voted off the island, everyone has to go home?
When it's out, just leave it. You know what, don't bother refueling it. It's not worth it. Just let it cool down. You can do it the next day.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you want them to read the label.
Mm-hmm.
I did notice on one of these labels when I was reading it, and this is still really quite warm, even though we've had the lid on for a while. So I'm picking up from the bottom. I don't dare touch the top. But it does talk about keeping it away from your skin. So if you are lighting it, You might want to have some gloves or safety, protect yourself. But it says that if it gets on your clothing, to remove your clothing. But there's an important step missing from that, right?
Yeah, if your clothes are on fire, you've got to stop, drop, and roll. You've got to get that fire out.
Right, so I guess that's just if it's just the liquid that hasn't ignited. But
it's just not to make your clothes any more flammable than they might already be.
But it's interesting. There's a lot of information on there. Mm-hmm. And what about, like, these ones are in the little tins, but the bottles?
Yes.
So you have that.
Yes, so the containers, if you're going to use the containers, make sure that they have a flame arrestor on them. And this one here is a sample that I brought of a gasoline container with a nylon sleeve flame arrestor, and that just basically, it's permanently in here. It just goes right down into the actual container, and as you're refueling, it will reduce the likelihood of any vapors escaping, and therefore reduce the risk of flame jetting.
So this one is for gasoline, but could you put ethanol in there?
You can use the container for whatever you want. I mean, we're trying to get them so that the containers actually that they come in, the products come in, that they have a flame or a spark arrestor in them as well. A lot of them will come with it's just like a wire mesh over top as well, a little different system than this.
And that works as a flame arrestor?
For sure, yes. And you'll see them on the older style of gasoline containers as well.
So if I'm going out and buying a container like this to refill my fire pot, when I open it, I should see something in there that'll let me know if it's got a spark arrestor.
Similar to a strainer,
arrestor.
for example, you'll see that. So that'll reduce the amount of vapors that come out as you're refueling.
And if it doesn't have that, then if I've already invested in a fire pot, I should invest in a container that has a spark arrestor in it.
And this container here, in addition to the spark arrestor, it also has this nice refueling nozzle as well. So you can control the amount of fuel. You can get closer in as well. You can open and close it easily and stop it really instant instead of having to go like this and then it spills over as well. And the main thing, the big thing is if you really have to refuel, do it when nobody else is around.
And I think what's important with that is what we've seen is that it's not the person that's filling it that gets the injuries.
Yes, because most of the time they're filling it up like this, and the people that are across are the ones that get injured.
And so that's where the flame is jetting.
Yes.
So for your own protection, when you're doing it, do it by yourself. Follow all the safety instructions. Make sure you're filling when it's cool, and that you have a spark arrestor on your container.
Yes.
So we've had these turned off now for quite a while, and with the thermal imaging camera you can see, well, this one is now reading at about 103 degrees Fahrenheit, and this one that has the lid on it is 92 degrees Fahrenheit. So there's nothing visible, there's no flame, it's not burning. Would you feel comfortable refilling that?
No, I would not refill it. It's not worth it's too risky. And that's the other thing is we put the lids on there to take all the oxygen away to make sure that the flame was out, and it's been out for quite some time. That hot surface is still too risky and it might ignite the vapors.
Okay, so it has to be completely cool, 24 hours in between refueling, and that way you'll be safe.
Yes.
Is there anything else that you want to add about this?
No, like I said before, if the flame goes out, you just assume that it's still hot enough that it can ignite the fuel if you go to refuel it, so just leave it.
Okay, so fill it once for the night and leave it at that. Okay, well, we have a story. And the problem when it comes to when we're preaching fire safety, and you probably know this from your experience as well, is everybody thinks it's not going to happen to them. Mm-hmm. And until we see the impact, or until we see that it actually does happen to somebody, it's easy to just think that's going to happen to other people. I don't need to worry about it. Well, we have a story. Judith's story was one of the fatalities. And her husband with Health Canada has made this public service announcement, and nothing drives home the importance of being safe around these fire pots like this PSA. I want to thank you very much for being our guest, And we're going to throw to the video now, and we can hear Judith's story, and hopefully that will be the last fatality that we've heard about in the province of Ontario caused by flame jetting.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, that's a hard thing to talk about, but Judith was a very hardworking, loving mother who loved her job as a dentist. There was a terrible big blackout in August. So we walked down to the people's cottage, and there was a flame thing going in the middle because we didn't have any lights because there was no electricity. So this was their only source of light. And so I thought, oh, well, that's kind of pretty. And, you know, that was flaming and looked nice. And there was a huge flash of light and a lot of screaming. They came and got me to say that Judith had been badly injured. Judith was sedated and intubated and taken to Sunnybrook and became very ill very quickly. She became septic. And what kills burn patients is infection. We had to watch as she quickly deteriorated, and they did a number of things to try to make her better, but nothing would work. There will be times when that thing will still be burning and you won't know that it is because you cannot see the flame. So as you pour it, there's this cloud that you can't see of flammable material in the air, and it draws the flame down into the container that you're holding and pouring. And when it does that, it has nowhere to go but out. And it makes a flamethrower. It is always dangerous to refuel directly into a fire pot if that fire pot, if you've not completely extinguished the fire. Well, I can't help Judith, you know, and I don't want anybody else to die. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, that's a tough one.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
When you're online, Rogers TV on YouTube shares news and events from your community, like messages from local leaders, updates on the latest health news, local business presenting their new offerings, and how our local communities are working their way through these unprecedented times. Visit and subscribe to Rogers TV on YouTube for the latest local information.
When I get up in the morning, the first thing I do is put on my yarn.
Jaylen's been able to